Your dreams are bigger, bolder, and more badass than the life you're living now, but something just keeps getting in the way. Join certified coach and former therapist Diane Wingert for the Driven Woman podcast. She'll show you how to get rid of whatever is holding you back so you can stop spinning your wheels and up-level your life. Get ready to hop in and buckle up. This is the Driven Woman podcast, and we're heading for the fast lane.
Well, hey there, Driven Woman, and welcome back to the podcast. Today is a solo episode, and over the next few solo episodes, I'm going to pull back the curtain on some of the techniques, tools, and strategies that I use in my business that have helped me grow over the last few years. For those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that I had a very successful private psychotherapy practice, which I closed, became a coach, and then took my business online. And while I thought it was a small pivot, it actually was a much bigger change than I realized. If I had it all to do over, I think one of the most important changes I would have made is that I would have specialized much, much sooner in both the therapy practice and in the coaching practice. Now, there's a lot of discussion out there in the interwebs about niching. Some people say niche down, and when you think you've niched down far enough, niche down 3 more levels. And then there are other people that say, F it with all this niching business, I'm going to work with whoever I want. But as the internet has gotten busier and more noisy and more crowded, being a specialist in something is actually going to help you get found much faster than being a generalist. Now, I had a generalist therapy practice in the beginning. I loved it. I was proud of the fact that I could work with people from little bitty kids all the way up to people in advanced years. Like at one point, I think my youngest client was 6 years old and my oldest was 82. But as more and more time went by and I got more and more confident and secure that I could attract and work with a variety of different clients, then the conversation switched from me being able to convince myself that I could fill my slots to who do I want to work with most? In other words, instead of thinking, can I get enough people? I thought, assume that you can get whatever kind of client you want. Who do you want the most? And not only that, because I want to encourage people, especially coaches who are in an unregulated profession, I want to encourage people to have the best ethics and the best integrity that they possibly can, even if they're not part of a regulated industry that requires it. That's what truly separates you from the gazillion other coaches who are probably not even going to be coaches in 2 to 5 years. Whereas if you conduct your business with ethics and integrity, you will still be around and you'll be doing better than ever. So let's roll back a little bit. If you know what you're doing and you have enough experience and expertise to know that there's a particular group of people that you are uniquely qualified to help, to serve, you know what they need, in some cases better than they do, and you have been able to create predictably good outcomes with a wide variety of people in that group, then you want to do everything possible to really call out to that group of people in your marketing, in your content creation, in your social media posts, in your networking, and all of your messaging. But even so, it's not quite enough. So today, I want to tell you why I think it is really extremely useful to use an application process, particularly for those of you that are coaches or consultants who sell a high-ticket coaching offer. It may be one-on-one, it may be group. Usually if it's high-ticket, it's one-on-one, or it's 6 months to a year. And why I think it behooves both you and your potential clients to have an application process for screening. It's good for you and it's good for them. I'm going to tell you why. Whether you call it an interview, depending on your niche, depending on your target market, and depending on your perfect client, an interview might be the appropriate terminology. I couldn't possibly know what would be right for your business, but don't eliminate the possibility of calling it an interview, because that might be exactly what it is. And that might help your perfect client choose you because of that languaging. You can also call it a consultation. I use the term consultation. The majority of other coaches I know call it a discovery call, and some people refer to it as an application. But basically, we're talking about the same thing. What we're talking about is, instead of just allowing someone to sign up on your website to work with you and sending them a link to your payment processor, you are actually screening your clients. I think this is such a value add, even though it takes some of your and their time. Because if you really want to have a sustainable business where you have an excellent reputation, one that allows you to grow in visibility over time and allows you to either grow your business or grow your pricing, you're going to want to be selective about who you work with. And in my opinion, if you want to have that kind of coaching or consulting business, the last thing you want to do is just allow anybody to sign up to work with you, which then obligates you to work with them without taking the time to screen. Now, some people, depending on their business model, they choose to have someone else do that. They might have salespeople that work for them. They might have closers that work for them. They train that person to screen out those who are not qualified or not appropriate and admit or enroll those who are. I've seen this go sideways in a lot of different coaching programs that I've been a part of, because most of these closers are paid on commission. So they have a selection bias, don't they? They have a selection bias where they're going to want to admit as many people as possible, because they don't make a closing commission or a sales commission if they decline someone. But if you're the one who is doing the screening, either because that's your business model, that's your preference, that's the size business you have, or you just simply want to have that level of control, you're only going to enroll people, if you're working with a high degree of ethics and integrity, you're only going to enroll people that you are convinced are going to have a great outcome. That is my standard, and I highly recommend you at least consider making it yours. Because if you take the wrong clients in, maybe because you need the money, maybe because your ego needs the enrollment, maybe because you're saving up for a vacation, who knows, whatever the reason. If you take in someone who's not the right client, you may not have a good outcome. In fact, having a good outcome when it's not a good client is probably a bit of a crapshoot. They may not complete your program. They may not adhere to the requirements of your program. And most people lack the self-awareness to say, I shouldn't have enrolled. I wasn't ready. It wasn't the right time. I didn't have the bandwidth. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to blame you. They're going to talk shit about you. And they will probably talk shit about you publicly on social media. Or if a friend of theirs, a colleague of theirs, knows that they enrolled with you, and that person might be interested in working with you, they're going to say, don't bother. So it's really in your best interest to have that screening call, that consultation call, that interview, that application, that discovery call for your perfect client. Another benefit to doing this, and you may not need to do it forever. You may end up having a team member that you can train so well that they literally think like you, and they will be 100% accurate in knowing who to admit and who to decline or defer from your program. But if you're not there yet, or even if you think you might be, I hope to convince you to at least consider for a period of time to do these calls yourself. Because nothing beats real live experience talking to real live prospects, leads, potential customers, and clients. You just get such a feel for who your branding, who your marketing, who your messaging is attracting. And if they're not the perfect client for you, then you know what you need to fix, don't you? It really creates a lot of value for that ideal client when you do the screening call. Most of them really appreciate having the opportunity to spend some one-on-one time with you on the phone or on a Zoom call before they get out their credit card and put down, in many cases, a few $1,000s. That's a scary proposition for most people, even people that are pretty freewheeling when it comes to their spending habits, because they want to know that you're the right coach for the right reason at the right time. And most people also want your leadership to help them determine if they're actually ready for what you have to offer. So it is really a high value experience to do this. Who does it repel? I think if you have a good discovery process, if you have a good screening process, and I'm going to walk you through my exact process on this podcast episode, it does a pretty good job of repelling the freeples. These are the people that just want free stuff. They just want to hang out with you for free. They have no intention of hiring you. If you do a pretty legit screening process, you're going to really repel most of them. It will repel most of the impulse buyers and the people who impulsively sign up for this, that, and the other thing, and then half the time don't show up because they don't even remember signing up for it. And it will repel a lot of the tire kickers too. Just the people that, their lives are run by FOMO. So they just keep signing up for things, subscribing to things, opting into things that they probably aren't going to use or don't even know if they need because they're worried that they might miss out if they don't. A good screening process will not eliminate, I make no promises for that, but it will absolutely deter and repel a good lot of them. The main reason why you want to do a screening or application process for your high-end coaching or consulting is what I call expectation management. In your description, I use Calendly, by the way. I use Calendly as my scheduling system for everything, for my podcast, when I'm interviewing a team member, for my coaching clients to sign up for their coaching calls, and for my consultations as well. So the expectation management begins with what you call it. Don't just follow the leader on this. Don't follow the herd. Don't be a sheeple. Think about what you want to call it. Do you want to call it a discovery call? Do you want to call it a consultation? Do you want to call it application, enrollment interview? Call it something that's on brand and will be the language that will appeal to your perfect client. But in the description section, and I'm most familiar with Calendly, so I really can't speak to the others, but in addition to what you call it, the label, Calendly calls them events, then you have a description. In the description section, I state who this is for and who it's not for. I know this is controversial, but I also state the price. I have experimented with a lot of different ways of doing things with respect to pricing, putting your price on your website, not putting your price on your website, putting it in the discovery process, not putting in the discovery process. And what I have learned, at least for me in my business, is that when I state the price up front, I have basically eliminated the people who used to sign up for a free consultation with me. And after I had spent a period of time with them, and they were super enthusiastic about working with me, and I thought I'd like to work with this person too, then I would tell them the price and they would go, sorry, can't afford that. I don't want to talk to those people, not because it's a waste of my time, even though it is. It is a waste of their time, and it creates expectations that I'm not able to fulfill. I don't want someone to fall in love with me as the person they are desperate to work with, only to find out that would be completely impossible because it's not in their budget. That's not fair. Expectation management. So I include in the description, this is who it's for, this is who it's not for, this is the investment of both money and time. I tell them how long it is, how often we meet, how long those calls are, what they will be doing in between calls. And I think if you have a high ticket program and you also have a lower ticket program, let's say, for example, your high ticket program is one-on-one coaching, and you also have a lower ticket group program, you can put right into the description on Calendly or any other scheduling software. Basically, if you're ready to make this kind of investment, go ahead and complete this. If you are the kind of person who benefits just as much from seeing other people coached as from being coached yourself, and you would like a lower cost program, click here to get on the wait list for my next round of groups. So they literally don't even book the consultation once they see the price point. If they realize this is the coach for me, I can wait to work with her, but I can't do it now at this price point, or I can't do it ever at this price point. That's up to them to decide. Hey, it's Diane with a quick interruption to the episode because I've got a couple questions I just need to ask you. One, are you where you want to be in your business? Are you making the money you want to make, working the hours you want to work, seeing the clients that you want to see, and getting the income and impact that you went into business to get? And if the answer is no, what's holding you back? Why is there a gap between where you are and where you want to be? Do you know the answer? In my experience working with female solopreneurs, so many of them don't even really know what's standing in their way, and that is so frustrating. So I created a little quiz called What's Holding You Back? There's a link to it in the show notes. If this is you, please take the quiz. And if you do, DM me on Instagram at Coach Diane Wingert and let me know your results. Now, on the other hand, if you already know what's holding you back, if you already know what the obstacles are that are getting in your way from achieving the income and impact that you deserve and desire, then I don't want you to take the quiz. Forget about the quiz. Go directly to the other link in the show notes and book a consult with me. I may be the very coach, and this may be the year that you put all of that behind you and really have the business that you went into business to have. For everybody else, keep on listening. And if you find value in what you hear, don't forget to leave me a rating and review on Apple or wherever you're listening. Here we go. Back to the show.
Now, looking back, a year from now to today, I'm a completely different person. Even, from the very first day that I started to work with you, I realized things are going to be really different. I mean, actually, I know before we even spoke, when I heard you on that podcast, I thought, this woman is exactly what I need. And honestly, I've never met anyone like you. And I'm so appreciative of everything that you've done. I mean, just sharing your experiences with everyone and being so open and honest, and just seeing you and how you interact with other people and how you share your experiences has helped in that recalibration in my own mind, because now I can accept myself for who I am and I don't have to apologize for who I am. Who I am is who I am, and I love who I am. I'm not perfect by any means, no one is, but I'm freaking awesome.
Next part of the process of screening is for you to determine how much time you want to make available to doing these calls. A lot of people say when they're just getting started and they don't have a lot of clients or any clients yet, they will just open up their calendar so that if you were to go in and say, okay, I want to book a consult with this person, and you were to see Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., every single slot is open. What kind of impression are you going to have of that person? You're going to probably correctly estimate that they're a beginner, and you might also accurately or inaccurately estimate that they're not very good if they are 100% available. So I think in addition to not wanting to lend the impression that you're overly available or not very good, I don't think you should be manipulative or deceitful and only put like one slot every 3 weeks because you think that's going to convey the impression that you're booked solid and everybody wants to work with you. That's kind of bullshit, and we both know it. But in determining how many slots you actually want to make available, I want you to think about these things. 1, how many consultations can you go through with focus, clarity, positivity, high energy, and without a hint of rejection sensitivity if the person says no or I need to think about it. How many can you do in a day? How many can you do in a week? That is a really important little piece of self-awareness that you need to factor in, because even if you have very few clients and you are inclined to give a lot of availability for your discovery calls, your application, or your interview, if you know for a fact, if I talk to 3 people in a row and none of them decides to work with me, I'm going to be lying on the couch eating Ben and Jerry's fish food for the rest of the week. Then don't do that to yourself. Please. Another thing to think about. What is the best time of day for you? Are you a morning person like me? Or are you just getting rolling at 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon? Because these calls are so important to your business and you really want to show up like the pro that you are, book these calls, make the time slot for these calls available on your calendar at the time of day and even the days of the week when you are literally at your best. I am not an evening person. So even if somebody says the only time I can meet with you is an evening for a discovery call, I'm really going to try to talk them out of it because I know I will not be my best. I might even be willing to meet someone on a weekend morning to avoid showing up at a time when I know my ass is going to be dragging. So think about the best time of day for you and the maximum number of discovery or consultation calls that you can do in a day and or week. Here's another factor about that in terms of your availability. If somebody wants to sign up to meet with you, who's considering working with you, how soon do you want to meet with them from the time they sign up? I factored into my Calendly a minimum number of hours between when they sign up and when they actually get to meet me. I do this very strategically because I don't want people to sign up on impulse. And if they have to wait a couple days, they've forgotten all about it. Okay. I have ADHD. A lot of my clients have ADHD. A lot of us are very impulsive, but someone who signs up to meet with me for a consult, and if they have to wait 3 days, they've totally forgotten they signed up. That is giving me an indication and giving them an indication that there may be some challenges ahead in working together. So think about that aspect too. And if you don't want to wake up in the morning and all of a sudden see, oh crap, there's somebody on my calendar in an hour, you can also adjust your availability so that you get minimum number of hours notice when someone does book one of these consults. Okay, ready for the next thing? Buffer time. If you are someone who wants to review their questions, I'm going to go into this next. I ask several questions of each person who books a consultation with me. If you want to review those just before the call, so that's fresh in your mind, I do that. I recommend that. Put buffer time in before the call so that you don't have calls back to back to back, which would eliminate your potential for doing that. Give yourself a little buffer time afterwards if you want to make a notation of anything, or you want to send that person something, or you just want to make a couple notes what the two of you agreed about a decision. Some people want you to make a decision. That's another thing to think about. Some coaches and consultants want the prospect to make their mind up right there on the call. And other people want the person or allow the person to think about it for a day or 2 or 3. Factor that in. Here's another thing, notifications. And again, we're talking about expectation management. I like the one notification 24 hours ahead of time. Calendly also allows me to do one notification by email, reminding them they've signed up for this consultation 24 hours ahead of time. You can also do it in addition to that, an hour ahead of time, and another one 15 minutes ahead of time. Now, while that might sound like very thoughtful, very caring, very nurturing, be very careful about expectations that you are unconsciously setting up and signaling to that prospect. If you're going to remind them 3 times for a free consultation before they're even a paying customer, they're going to expect you to do an awful lot of following up and reminding and chasing after them once they're a client. Trust me on this one. That's not something that I choose to do. I want the clients that work with me to appreciate one reminder so that they can double check that it's on their calendar, but I don't want to be chasing anybody. Couple of questions that I would recommend that you include in the process of signing up for the free consultation. Of course, you're welcome to do whatever you want. It's one of the beautiful things about having your own business. You don't have to listen to me or anybody. And you can also sift through the advice if you like my advice and choose the things that work for you and leave the rest. But these are a few of the questions that I recommend. 1, describe the problem that you're having, that you're looking for help with. That's not the exact question. I'm trying to keep this general so it's applicable for you and your business. So basically, you ask them in your own way to describe the problem that they're having. Next question, you ask them to describe the impact that that problem is having on their life or their business. And the third question is, what have you tried already? So let's say you're a relationship coach, and let's say you work with couples that are within 1 year of having their first child. This is a very stressful time, even though it's been a long years in the rear view. I do remember it, but let's say that's what you do. So describe the problem. Maybe they're going to describe, my partner and I are barely on speaking terms. We're really stressed out. We're not getting enough sleep. I feel like our relationship is on the rocks. Everything is about the baby. Okay, that's a good, thorough description. And that may or may not be in your wheelhouse. But what is the impact? Okay, that's the follow-up question. The impact is you did not go into this relationship and bring a child into this world, hopefully, for the two of you to split and now be trying to co-parent this child. So maybe the person would say, I'm afraid that we made a mistake having a baby. I think maybe we weren't ready for this. Maybe I shouldn't have left my job, maybe whatever. So they're starting to show. And the reason why this is important is because if your solution addresses the impact that they're having or are worried about having, you're going to have a much easier time of structuring this call and being able to determine if this person should even be working with you. What have you tried already gives you an idea of if their list of things they've tried are all free things. I've been listening to podcasts, I've been reading self-help books, and I've been talking to my sister and my mom. And you are trying to sell a $10,000 coaching program. That's a big leap for that person. But if they say, I've been going to individual therapy, my partner and I went to a couple of couple sessions, I've been reading books about, parenting in the first year of life, keeping your relationship alive, then this is probably a person who is much more inclined to invest in a solution and maybe even the solution that you're offering. A couple more questions I want you to think about. When would you like to start? The way I phrase it is something like, assuming you and I are a fit, how soon would you like to begin? This is really important because this is something that's happened to me several times. I have actually had even recent consultations with people that were referred to me by other clients I'd work with or found me based on my podcast or a podcast interview I did. And they were good clients, appropriate clients. They had appropriate expectations. I had a solution for the problem they were having, but they actually were not in a position to start working with me for several months. When I'm talking about my one-on-one coaching offer, it's first come, first serve after you go through the screening. I can't guarantee that person I'm going to have a slot available when they are ready a few months down the road. So I've actually just added this question now. And that's another beautiful thing about having your own business. You're always learning and you can always revise and tweak little parts of your process to get even better. I really thought that I had most of the questions that I needed, but that turned out to be a really important one that I had somehow overlooked because I'm the kind of person that I don't sign up for a consultation with someone until I am dead serious and ready to roll. But other people are they think further ahead than I do. So that was a little bit of a blind spot for me. And I asked two other questions. One, is there anyone else you need to discuss this with before you make a decision? I actually learned this from a consultant that I worked with this year named Claudia Schoch. I'll include her name in the show notes. And she helped me understand that oftentimes when you're talking to a woman and she is investing a sizable sum of money, she may have an agreement with her husband or partner that any allocation above a certain amount, they're going to discuss before she makes the decision. I think that's entirely appropriate. And if that's your arrangement, then that would be a good question for me to ask of you if you were considering working with me. Is there anyone else you need to discuss this with? And if the answer is yes, at least on my consultation scheduling form, I'll say, please invite them to the call. Because what I don't want is for the person to get all fired up, be really excited about working with me, and then now they're in the position to explain that to their spouse or partner who wasn't on the call and doesn't understand all the things that we discussed. That then puts the prospect in the position of having to sell their partner on why they want to work with you. And that can feel challenging. So I always want the other person there. If there's another person who's part of the decision, by all means, invite them. And if they can't come, I ask the person's permission to record the call on Zoom. And if they're serious about working with me and I'm serious about inviting them to work with me, I will give them the recording to share with their partner. You may not do that, and that's totally fine for you, but that's something I do. And the last question I ask, and it's not necessarily the last question in order, it's the last question I'm going to share with you on this episode, is how did you hear about me? Now, this tells me a lot of things. One, what aspects of my marketing are working well enough that I am attracting an actual lead? Because listen, we all have followers on social media. We may have people that subscribe to our email list. They may show up to our lives, or if we're teaching a master class, or we're a guest on someone's podcast, or they even subscribe to our podcast. But the most serious prospect you have, the person who's this close to becoming a client, is the person who will book this consultation, interview, application, discovery call with you. I want to know how they find me, because that just tells me what's working in my marketing. It also tells me where they are in the decision process, because I allow them to check multiple boxes. So if the person says, I saw you on social media, then I heard you in a podcast interview, then I started listening to your podcast, and now here I am, that's a serious prospect. If they say, I found you on an online search, when we have our consultation, I'll ask them, would you mind telling me, if you can remember, what search term you entered? Because then I know what's going on with my SEO. So as you can see from all that I've shared, I am a huge fan of screening your prospects for that perfect client, not because we only want to help people that are the perfect fit for who we want to help. But my philosophy, if you want to be an ethical coach or consultant who conducts their business with integrity, regardless of whether you're in an unregulated industry or not, then you're going to want to help the people that you are ideally suited to help and for whom you are the just right fit. I have personally found it to be incredibly helpful to do these consultations. I always learn from them. And by the way, I learn from the people that decide not to hire me as well. Because if you're attracting a lot of people who decide not to hire you, then you can figure out what's going on. It may be that you need some help to figure out how to do these discovery calls so that more of them end up as clients. Or you may need to have a fresh pair of eyes on your marketing because you're attracting people that are not the right fit. So I hope that was helpful. It has certainly been helpful for me to develop this process over time. And as I continue to evolve it, maybe down the road, I will do an update of this episode if that would be helpful to you. So that's all for now. Come back next week for another amazing guest interview. Bye, Driven Woman.
You've been listening to the Driven Woman podcast with Diane Wingert. Want more straight talk and strategy each week that will take you from spinning to winning? Don't forget to hit subscribe in your podcast player so you won't miss a single episode. Then head on over to the Driven Woman free and private Facebook group community. See you there.